What is happening now has never been witnessed before, as if it were a third world war between Palestine and Israel, and an exceptional invasion by Palestine of the Israeli borders, and an event called the Al-Aqsa Flood, the last occupation in the world. Watch to the end. Israeli army spokesman Avichai Adri said on Saturday, "We are in the midst of war in every sense of the word, and all capabilities are on the table." The major military operation launched by the Al-Qassam brigades, the military wing of the Hamas movement, against Israel at the dawn of October 7th, caused a resounding security and political earthquake in Israel, and will have strong repercussions on the regional context affecting the dynamics of the Palestinian-Israeli conflict. The Palestinians do not need many reasons or justifications in general to escalate their conflict with the occupation, while the most extremist governments in the history of Israel seek to completely liquidate the Palestinian issue, annex the West Bank, and destroy the small glimmer of hope remaining for peace. While the Palestinians feel that they have become increasingly isolated in their regional surroundings at a time when Israel is building increasing partnerships with the Arab world, a response of this kind to these disappointments is the least that the Palestinians aspire to in reality. However, the fact that this operation is unprecedented in the history of the Palestinian conflict with the Israeli occupation in terms of form, size, results, and efficiency in planning and implementation adds a lot of excitement to the reasons, objectives, and implications of the timing chosen by Hamas to carry out the attack. Like other major operations carried out by Palestinian factions in recent years, the most recent of which was Operation Sword of Jerusalem in 2021, Operation Al-Aqsa Flood seeks to confirm that the influence of the Palestinian resistance on the course of the conflict with Israel remains strong and decisive at historical junctures. For the Palestinian issue, since imposing its siege on Gaza more than a decade and a half ago, Israel has sought to undermine the ability of the Palestinian factions in the Gaza Strip to influence the political and military equations of the conflict, and the blockade was used as a means to push the Palestinians in Gaza to rebel against Hamas's administration of the Strip. In recent years, the Israelis have believed that the supposed weakness of the Gaza equation in the conflict helps them escalate their policies in Jerusalem and the West Bank. None of this was ever achieved, and in addition to the failure of the siege to weaken Hamas popular support in the Gaza Strip, the military capabilities of Hamas and other factions have grown significantly since the imposition of the siege. The military professionalism with which the Al-Qassam brigades carried out the Al-Aqsa Flood operation shows how Hamas and other factions have become more capable of carrying out major operations despite Israel's military and intelligence superiority. The success of the Hamas movement in causing a major security shock through Operation Al-Aqsa Flood reflects a catastrophic Israeli security and intelligence failure, and its repercussions will certainly be significant on Israeli internal politics. Ironically, Benjamin Netanyahu, who built a large part of his domestic legacy on his numerous wars in Gaza in order to weaken the Palestinian resistance factions, will today have to deal with the repercussions of a major security earthquake of Gaza's own making. Netanyahu may find in launching a deadly war on Gaza a way to restore morale to the Israeli deterrence equation, but the costs will be more severe for Israel than ever before. As a means to raise these costs, Hamas resorted in Operation Al-Aqsa Flood to the strategy of kidnapping the largest possible number of Israeli hostages with the aim of increasing pressure on the Israeli government and pushing it to think carefully about the consequences of waging a comprehensive war on the Gaza Strip. This strategy will act as a strong pressure factor on the approach in which it will be managed. Netanyahu after the Al-Aqsa Flood operation. The fact that Operation Al-Aqsa Flood coincides with U.S. efforts to expand the scope of Israeli-Arab normalization and conclude a peace deal between Saudi Arabia and Israel explains some of the likely important goals that Hamas sought to achieve. It is still unclear to measure the potential effects of this development on the path of Saudi-Israeli normalization, but it certainly makes matters more complicated. In general, this major development in the Palestinian-Israeli conflict shows that Arab-Israeli normalization and those working to create a new regional reality show that their ability to influence the direct dynamic of the Palestinian-Israeli conflict seems limited, and that an Arab-Israeli peace will not necessarily lead to an Israeli-Palestinian peace in the end if it does not take place. Taking into account the basic interests of the Palestinians and the basic objective circumstances controlling this conflict. The Palestinian situation today appears weak in terms of influencing Arab policies in the conflict compared to past years and decades, but in reality it is no longer able to express itself and demonstrate its ability to resist attempts to liquidate the Palestinian cause except by reigniting the fronts with Israel. Despite the great challenges facing the Palestinian issue today and its declining importance in regional and international policies, the new phase that the Palestinian-Israeli conflict is entering after the Al-Aqsa flood operation should serve as a warning to the region and the world that the Palestinian issue is still capable of expressing itself and its presence in various means and forms, regardless of the extent of its presence in regional and international policies, and that an Israeli Arab peace will have no meaning for the stability of the East for Assad if he does not push Israel to change its approach towards the Palestinians and force it to take fundamental steps that lead to the establishment of an independent state for the Palestinians on the 1967 borders. It is in no way conceivable that Israel today, under the most extremist government in its history, would be willing to change its approach, but Operation Al-Aqsa Flood will greatly complicate the ability of the extreme right in Israel to continue its agenda aimed at liquidating the Palestinian issue with minimal consequences. Operation Al-Aqsa Flood is the first major consequence of this agenda. The repercussions of Operation Al-Aqsa Flood on the Palestinian-Israeli conflict and on the Middle East may reshape this conflict again.